What thought, if I thought that thought, would make me feel a little bit better, and how would it make me feel? And then you try it on. You try it on. You take a bite out of it, just like you try something new in a restaurant. You try it on and you go, oh, I kind of like that. That tastes kind of good. Right? We get to try this shit on. The problem is we don't even realize what we're putting on and we're digesting over and over again that's actually making us sick. Try something new on. If I thought that thought, how would I feel? Does this expand me or contract me? This is a game changer.
Welcome to Winning the Divine Lottery. I'm your host, Amy Dons.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Winning the Divine Lottery. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm here to help you win the Divine Lottery. I'm here to help you shift today into your highest timeline and to do it effortlessly and easily and joyously. I'm really looking forward to sharing this topic today with you. Winning the Divine Lottery is really all about claiming your soul inheritance. You were born worthy. There is nothing inherently wrong with you. You are incredible the way you are. And it's time for you to step into that fully and receive all that you are worthy of. Are you ready? Let's go. Today's topic is inspired by Rachel Elizabeth Palmer. She is a member of my Facebook community group. And as some of you might know, it's been 2 weeks now since I returned back from a week-long Dr.JoeDispenza event. And I had posed in there, what kind of questions would you want to ask me about my experience there? And one of her questions was how to stay in your highest timeline. And when I was sitting reflecting about this, I was thinking, well, what do I know about this pre-Joe Dispenza, and has that changed post Joe Dispenza? And I actually really think it's just given more depth and more meaning to what I've already walked in my life. So I'm sharing with you my take on this, including some key points. I did make some notes here today about creating your state of being every day, and that your highest timeline is always an empowering thought or a question away. And I also wrote my own definition about what is your highest timeline anyway. I think it's important for us to define this for ourselves so that we have a better understanding of what exactly does it mean to stay in your highest timeline or to move timelines. I also have a 3-step formula that got birthed out of a mystical experience I had like 11 years ago now. And it's driven me forward in my life. It's made me seek the truth. And I think this 3-step formula is going to help you immensely. And it really ties in with today's topic. So why don't we just jump right into it? So do I give you the definition first? The definition, this is what I wrote about what is your highest timeline, is the highest frequency that you allow yourself to receive now. Let me repeat that. Your highest timeline is the highest frequency that you will allow yourself to receive now. So let's unpack that just a little bit, because I don't know if this is your first time hearing this language, but I really want to unpack it simply so that you gain a little bit deeper understanding and clarity, and you can apply it to your own life every single day. So everything is energy, everything is frequency, including the chair that you're sitting on, the earbuds that you're using to listen to this podcast, or the device that you're watching this video on. Everything is energy. But when we get down to matter, the frequency and the vibration slows down. So it becomes really slow to give the illusion of it being like I'm touching my computer right now, being dense, something tangible that we can touch and feel with our senses. Makes sense? Okay. So, if there is a higher frequency for you and an available higher timeline, it means that there is a frequency higher than you have experienced before. So, higher frequencies, how we feel them in the human form is through feelings, through emotion. So when we feel joy, when we feel gratitude and appreciation, a sense of wonder and awe for life, these are higher frequencies because they expand us. They expand us actually beyond our five senses and beyond just our limited small self. Almost always joy, a love for life, awe. It takes us out of the ego self and into what we want to call all, everything, oneness, source, the unified field, the divine, and hence winning the divine lottery, okay? So there is a highest timeline that you exist as this being in these higher frequencies. Let's name some of them again. Joy, a love for life, gratitude, appreciation, being in awe and wonder of life, feeling blessed, feeling generous, like you just want to give, right? Compassion, love, alignment, authenticity, where you just are so spontaneous and you're yourself no matter what, because you're not thinking about what the world is going to think or say about you. You have a sense of wholeness. You feel wholeness. You don't feel separate from anything. There is no lack. There's only abundance, so much abundance. And you can hear from my tone, even the way that I'm exuding these frequencies, is they are yummy, they're delicious, they're expansive. There's no limit to them, okay? And then we have the other side of the coin, the lower frequencies, like anger and sadness and grief and hostility and doubt and fear and worry. And these are limited to what we know. The higher frequencies are limited to what we don't know. They actually exist in a realm beyond time and space, which we can call the quantum field. We can call the unified field of wholeness. We can call God. We can call source. Again, we can call consciousness, pure consciousness, infinite love, infinite intelligence, infinite spirit. There's so many different names. It's what resonates with you. And so, this question of how do I get to my highest timeline is more of a question of how do I create the highest frequency available to me now, which actually goes into what do you believe you're worthy of receiving right now? And then you're actually the one that emanates that into the field. And then you draw back to you the exact energetic experience to that. Let me give you an example. I have talked about this example on my podcast before. So, one of the ways that I use, that lots of people use, that Dr. Joe teaches, is through meditation. And in meditation, I kept seeing myself in a white bikini doing a headstand. And in this image, I was always so flippin' happy. I was giggling and joyful and spontaneous. I was feeling free in my body. I loved where I was. I was on the beach, okay? It was just every element, every high frequency was embedded into that image. And every time I close my eyes in meditation, at some point, that image would appear. I would see it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until it became a part of me. Now, I did not practice doing headstands in the physical realm. In fact, did I have a desire to do them? Possibly out of this happening. But did I need to do it? No. But what ended up happening was a bridge of incidents started to form. I got drawn to a specific yoga teacher who ended up teaching Muay Thai and kickboxing. Never dreamed about doing this sport, never knew anything about it in my life. Signed up for a year despite my physical limitations. That's for another podcast, okay, you guys? I decided that I was going to commit to a year. This process of being in this sport gave me what it needed to give me in order to lead me to the exact time, space, reality. It was already created in the quantum. The quantum was the image, the intention that I emanated into the field. Every time I saw myself in the white bikini doing a headstand, super happy on the beach. Okay? Keep following me. Keep listening really intently right now. You can't miss a trick with this one, okay? And what ended up happening is I also met a new guy and we were going on a date. And I love to play pretend. If you are ever in my world, if you ever get to mentor with me or do a group program with me, we play Winning the Divine Lottery game, which essentially is playing pretend, because playing pretend immediately, if you allow yourself to let go of who you think you are and all your perceived limitations, immediately emanates things into the field because it takes you beyond yourself. And he was so open to doing this me. We played pretend and we were having the time of our lives. We were goofy. We were being silly. We were just being so abundant. We were being so our natural selves in joy, in a state of wonder and curiosity and what's possible. Who knows? Like we were just open, right? And so many cool things happened that night. And then the coolest thing happened. We were back at my house and I had just purchased this yoga wheel. Didn't know how to use it. But I rolled out my yoga mat. I'm like, oh yeah, and you're supposed to be able to do this with it. And it's supposed to help you go into a wheel. And it's actually supposed to help you get into a headstand. And I put my head down in front of this wheel and kicked my legs up in the air. The next thing I know, I'm straight up in the air. And then I do a complete somersault over it. I will tell you that I was in the exact joy that I saw myself in that image. I was being silly, joyful, limitless, free. And I laughed and I was so happy. I was like blissed out. I literally felt ecstasy run through my bones. And I was so surprised and delighted because the other thing that I used to say is, like, I can't do somersaults anymore. I'm afraid I'm going to break my back. Well, I did not only a headstand, but a complete somersault. And all I felt was liberation and joy. Okay, now, was I in a white bikini? No, but I was in a body that I was proud of, that was really fit from the kickboxing and the Muay Thai that I was doing. Was I on the beach? No, but I was on the yoga mat, which had palm trees on it. So the image I saw was the recipe for this experience to come into my life because it was an exact energetic match to that image. And that's the really cool part about all this is when we emanate into the field, source, God, the divine knows exactly how to delight and surprise you. And it's always better than you could have imagined. Like I saw that image over and over and over again. It just naturally became a part of me. But had it happened exactly that way, it would have been a known experience. And the whole purpose of this moving into your highest timeline is getting into the highest frequency of it and letting the unknown get revealed to you, because that's when you get delighted. That's when you get surprised. That's when it makes such an imprint in your heart and soul that then you have a story like I just shared with you. This is what makes life exciting and fulfilling and meaningful. Okay. So moving away from the definition, let's get into some of these key points. So I talked about this first key point, which I think is really important. One of the ways to stay in your highest timeline and move there, connect with it. It's more about connecting with it. And all of our focus can go there. Where our focus goes, energy flows by creating your state of being every day. And your state of being is equal to how you think, how you feel, and how you act. This is what creates your reality. So just imagine this. Imagine you're a person who complains a lot, and you complain a lot, and this really gives you a state of being of almost being like a victim in your life. This is your state of being. You're a victim. Okay. And so you get actually addicted to complaining because it's a rush. It's like a rush of that stress hormone, that chemical that feeds on stress. And you get addicted to it and you need it every day, whether you're conscious of it or not. So how do you think your life is going to go if your state of being is being a victim? You're going to be shown and given experiences to create that same frequency because you are an energetic match to that exact experience. So, guess what? You're going to have more things to complain about because it will keep you in that loop that you're in over and over and over again, creating your state of being as a victim. But is that your highest timeline? No. There is a higher timeline. There is a version of you that doesn't complain anymore, that sees through the veil of illusion, that understands everything is working for your good, that everything in life is just a mirror. Those experiences that you are attracting to keep you complaining is a mirror to show you that the state of being that you're creating is a victim, and that is not your highest timeline. Your highest timeline is somebody who complains less and then gets to the place where you don't complain anymore because you understand that you're a conscious creator. You're not a victim. You get to create. You get to create your life simply by choosing if you're going to buy into those thoughts, which formulate beliefs, which trigger feelings, which trigger actions. Your state of being. It's so incredibly important. You have one state of being that is expansive, and that is your highest state of being, your highest truth. We call this your true self, your soul, your oversoul, you're one that's connected to God. And then we have the primal or the survival state of being that is just doing that. It's just trying to survive, and that's all you've known your whole entire life. So one is also created from the known, and one is created from the unknown. So your highest timeline is to give yourself permission to change your state of being every single day. And if you've never done this before, it's like anything else, it's a practice. So I want to give you some tangible things that you can do because, first of all, you're going to have the awareness that, wait a second, this is not the state of being that I actually prefer to be in. I would like to choose something new. I would like to create something new. So you need to be able to give yourself permission to do that. Step number one, that's your awareness. Step number two, when you have the awareness, the opposite already exists. There is a higher timeline, okay? And one of the ways that you can get there is by asking yourself, a really empowering question or thinking a really empowering thought. Because very often when we're not feeling good, when we're not in our highest timeline, we are thinking more of a low level thought. We're thinking more of a survival thought. We're thinking a lower frequency and a lower vibration. So that's why I said your highest timeline is always an empowering thought or a question away. Now, these are things that I use in my own life. The heart knows. Dr. Joe talks about this. Kyle Cease talks about this. Even before that, there was something that drew me to my heart years and years and years ago. It was over a decade ago now. I painted on my wall, "I'm committed to love." And I understood intellectually that if I was committed to love, that everything that was not love had to be removed from me, had to be removed from Amy. That is a firewalk. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable, to be stretched, to grow, and to always come back to love and always come back to the present moment. So, one of the things I do often is I ask my heart, what does my heart know right now? And what does it need right now? Because your heart knows within a few seconds, your heart knows. That's why we call it knowing something by heart. When we know something by heart, we know without knowing. It's natural to us. Don't get me started on the heart. The heart is so intelligent. It has an electromagnetic field that's huge. This gets measured by the Heart Math Institute. It's incredible. I always say it's simple. We point, I am. When we say our name, I am, we point to our heart. Our heart knows our truth. We need to become coherent in our heart. And you start by getting a relationship with it, by connecting with it, by putting a hand on your heart and asking your heart, what does my heart know right now? And what does it need right now? And that immediately will shift you into a higher timeline. Why? Because your heart actually has your best interests. This is the home of the soul. This is the truth of you. Even if you don't get an answer, doing this as a practice, asking yourself every day, what does my heart know right now? And what does it need right now? And listening. And I tell you, it's Dr. Joe knows this. I'm hearing him. It's a straight shooter. That's what he'll say. But I always said, they'll always tell you to the point. Your heart knows exactly. It won't be a huge, long sentence. It will be short and to the point. I can't tell you how many times my heart said, go have a shower when I asked it, that I needed to celebrate. That's another story for another time. I think I talked about it on one podcast. Anyways, it's always clear and specific, and it doesn't necessarily make sense to your analytical thinking mind. It makes sense though in the heart. And the more you listen to it and the more you trust it, whoa boy, whoa boy, whoa boy. You want to talk about moving into your highest timeline? It's through your heart. The more coherent your heart is, has to do with how much you're connecting with it and how much you're asking it, how much you're listening to it, how much you're trusting it, and how much you're following it. Okay. Another one is if I thought that thought, how would I feel? So let's say you're thinking a thought that doesn't make you feel good. I mean, why would you continue to think a thought that doesn't make you feel good? And I know a lot of people will go, yeah, well, it's just not that easy. Well, maybe not easy, but easy enough. I mean, really, once you become aware of a thought that doesn't make you feel good, you have a choice now to no longer cater to it. And what that means is you don't have to give it your energy anymore. You can slowly start making some space between you and the thought because the thought's not really you anyway. And then once you have some space, you could ask yourself, Well, if I thought another thought, how would it make me feel? So let me see if I can download an example right now. Okay, a lot of us have thoughts around the way we look. And a lot of us have thoughts around the way we look because there's so much projection out there between what's beautiful, what looks successful, whether we're talking about, it doesn't matter what gender, right? There's so much bleh thrown at us around that. So let's say, because I'm a woman, let's talk take a thought about how, oh, I look a little extra chunky today, or I don't look or feel that beautiful today. Okay. Now, most likely that thought's not going to make you feel good. So you give yourself some time and space simply by observing that thought. And you're like, well, if that doesn't make me feel good, I don't really want to choose that thought anymore. So, what thought would I want to think? And what thought, if I thought that thought, how would it make me feel? So maybe it's as simple as going, oh, well, I know this thought isn't true. I know it's just temporary because there are many days where I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, hey, girl, looking fine today, right? So you could do that. You know that that thought isn't true because it changes. And right away, when I said that out loud, I immediately felt lighter. Ooh, moving to a higher timeline in real time. Okay, this is a mentorship in action. So take a moment, write down what's that one nagging thought, that niggly thought that always pulls you into the ditch. Okay, not a fun place to be. It doesn't make you feel good. You realize, wow, that thought doesn't make me feel good. And I have a choice now that I don't have to give it my energy anymore. I don't have to give it my focus or attention or not as much. So, what thought, if I thought that thought would make me feel a little bit better, and how would it make me feel? And then you try it on. You try it on. You take a bite out of it, just like you try something new in a restaurant. You try it on and you go, oh, I kind of like that. That tastes kind of good. Right? We get to try this shit on. The problem is we don't even realize what we're putting on and we're digesting over and over again that's actually making us sick. Try something new on. If I thought that thought, how would I feel? Does this expand me or contract me? This is a game changer. This is so good. If you get to know your body well, you will know in a heartbeat, the heart knows, if what you're thinking is contracting or expanding you. If it expands you, it takes you into the unknown. Automatically, you're going to move to a higher frequency, a higher timeline, because you are no longer living in the familiar past, which is all your known experiences, which is where most people create their future from, which is from a place of lack. Known equals lack. Unknown equals infinite space, infinite potential. All possibilities exist. Okay? So, does this expand me or contract me? Story time. I have a story. When I got back from Dr. Joe, I wasn't sick. My body was purging and going through the 3D crap that it needed to go through in order to catch up to all the energy that I moved. That's how I describe that. Because that actually is more truthful than I am sick. Be careful what you affirm, okay? You can't be sick because you're not your body and you're not your mind. Okay, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. All right. So, I was supposed to travel to Toronto literally a week later. And I was sitting with my heart. And I wasn't sure what the right move was for me. First of all, as a compassionate person living in 3D reality, I did not want to give myself or my body the opportunity to project what I had onto anybody else. So sitting, how confined we are in a plane, I was like, nope, that's not my highest timeline. I don't want to do that. If there's a way to avoid that, that's right for me and for the highest good. I want that. I knew I wanted that option. So I gave myself time and space to see how well I felt leading up to this trip, the second trip I was supposed to go on. And I'm letting you guys know it was a really cool trip. I had purchased Epic tickets, like 3 rows from the stage, to see Ellen DeGeneres's last stand-up comic tour. And I have loved her my whole entire life. I don't care what people say about her. I have loved her my whole entire life. And my son and I were supposed to go. And then the following day, we were going to go watch a Blue Jays game because I've never seen a Blue Jays game. And so the morning I decided that I wasn't going to go, immediately in my heart, I was like, give them away to your cousin. And what happened in my body was expansion. There was a liberation of energy. It was the opposite of contraction. And I also felt joy. I was like, yeah, give them away. Even though I paid a good, nice amount for them, give them away. So I offered them to her and she passed. I was like, okay, back to square one. I'm going to try selling them. So posted them on Facebook, maybe for about an hour. And something just felt off. It just felt out of alignment. And then I kind of just let it go. And then I thought, oh, wait a second. What if my brother wants them? Because back in May, when we were at my dad's celebration of life, and I told them that I was going to be going to Toronto to see Ellen, they suggested, why don't I go see them? It's only 4.5 hours from where they will be, and they were buying a new house and would just have been moving in. And so that's why they mentioned it. And I was like, oh, that would be awesome, but it's such a short trip. I don't want to be doing all of that traveling. That's not going to work for me. So I remembered that and I was like, wait a second. They only live 4.5 hours away. I bet maybe they'll want to go. So I called up my brother and I presented it to him. Excuse me. And at first he was like, I'll talk to my wife. I'm not sure if I'll go. And I'll be like, wait a second. And I'm like, I have this and the game. And like these are the tickets I have. And he was really intrigued. You could tell he was very, very interested, even though they had literally just moved. And it was their anniversary and they've been going nonstop for 3 months, okay? But I was like, maybe this is exactly what you need, a break, an adventure, a laugh or two or three. And they ended up letting me know later that night that they would take the tickets. I can't even tell you what happens when you follow your heart, when you listen to the thing that expands you the most. I felt so much joy, so much freedom. It brought me like this huge inner smile, knowing that it would be my brother and his wife getting to enjoy this. And you guys, I love Ellen. I almost surprised myself because there was a version, a lower timeline Amy, that would have been really bitter and disappointed that I wasn't well enough to go and maybe would have been selfish to try and figure out a way. Like, it's no big deal. I can just go on the plane. It's okay. Like, everybody will be fine, and to know that I was just giving them this gift, it was so incredibly liberating and expansive. It expanded me beyond a version of myself. So immediately I moved to a higher timeline. And I really want to point out that I do not believe that there's a highest. There isn't a highest timeline because if there's a highest timeline, there's a cap. And I don't think there's any caps on high. And I'm talking about the natural high, the supernatural high that comes from continuously growing, continuously expanding, continuously evolving, continuously going within and seeking within before we go out here and try and find the answers outside of ourselves. To somebody else, this might have not been their highest timeline, but for me, in the moment, it was. And they even asked me if I wanted anything for it. I was like, no, just go and have the time of your life. Really, like I could feel the goodness. I felt an overflow. So, this is an example of something expanding you. It might be the opposite of what the past you would currently do, but if it expands you, do it. Okay. I also, to top off what I just said, be open to not knowing what your highest timeline is. Because if you know what your highest timeline is, this defeats the purpose. Your highest timeline exists in the unknown, exists in the quantum field. So it's actually about moving into the unknown, feeling the feeling of it, feeling the intention. So for me, the intention, back to the headstand story, the intention was the image, because in that image was freedom, joy, liberation, like a love for life, a love for my body. Like it was all in there in that image. So your intention will emanate into the field and bring you an unknown experience that is an energetic match for that frequency. Make sense? The frequency of your intention. Whatever it is, to feel good, to feel relief. This is a big one, to feel satisfied for your efforts. As somebody who, I want to say a recovering, is that true? Like, this is a mentorship in action right now. Is that entirely true, what I'm about to say? I'm actually really contemplating this because I used to call myself a recovering um, not enough person, like a person that's generally been hard on myself my whole entire life. But, I say that out loud and it's not entirely true. There's times when I haven't been hard on myself. So, for those of us who have experienced not being enough or feeling enough, which is all of us, usually underlying that is we're never satisfied with our efforts. This is actually something Dr. Joe spoke about that really sunk into my being on another level. Because I realized if I was satisfied with my efforts, then I would always be coming from the state of being enough. And if I'm being enough, it means I am enough, which means I am doing enough. And so getting to this place where you're satisfied with your efforts. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about doing the inner work. I'm talking about the places where you stretch yourself and go out of your comfort zone and go beyond yourself. I am certainly satisfied with my efforts, with how I gave my tickets away and canceled my trip. In my heart, I am truly satisfied. That's not an egotistical thing. That's not a like I had to push through thing. That is like in my heart, I am satisfied because I know that that was in my highest timeline. That was my highest alignment. That was it. So I'm fulfilled. I'm satisfied, y'all. Okay. So let's go into my 3-step formula that was birthed out of a mystical experience. This is still evolving and growing, but this is how I wanted to explain it to you today. So it's PPF. It literally talks about the past, present, and future. And I actually think this is wonderful because in our 3D realm, we have a past, present, and future, even though none of them are really separate from one another. They all exist in one timeline. Everything's here right now, but again, that's another rabbit hole I could go really deep into. Past, present, and future. Here's the key with the past is most of us live there. Most of us live there. We dwell there. We tell the story over and over and over and over again. And what you need to do with the past is understand that it creates lack. Understand that it creates lack. And if you begin to completely detach and not live in your past anymore, to only look back to see how many people you've inspired. This is a hard one for some people because we're taught to um, relive, to go back, to feel. And okay, I'm not going to get myself caught in a contradiction because there is a part of me that believes that we have to feel the feeling fully when we're talking about trauma. This isn't that. This is about understanding from the moment you were conceived, okay? You were an abundant being. Abundance was your birthright. You were worthy of that simply because you were created and you exist. And there has been abundance emanated from you from that time. You might not have a conscious knowing or memory of it, but you have an innate knowing that runs through your every cell of your being. Okay, when you were a baby, you smiled, you giggled, you laughed. You brought so much inspiration to those around you. It doesn't matter how you were brought up, who raised you. There were people's lives that you touched simply by your existence and your beingness as a baby. And I promise you that this has been intrinsic in you. I don't care how many mistakes you've made. If you feel like you've done like the worst thing ever in your past, it doesn't matter. You have inspired more people than you could ever imagine. And actually, if Source could bring all of those people into a room, you would be blown away. You would probably be in doubt, just like you are being in doubt right now. The more you can practice, only looking to your past to understand and know all the people that you've inspired, the more your past is going to heal inside of you. That's step number one. Step number two in this formula is your present. Your present is abundant in nature. There's no lack in the present moment. When you're truly present, all there is now, and everything is available to you now. And in the now, isn't in the present, you have the potential to master the thought field. This is what I call the thought field. Okay? We can take something easy, like close your eyes right now. Imagine a field of flowers. Pick one flower. Cool. Now imagine a different flower. Imagine all the flowers turn to that flower. Cool. Pick a different flower. Imagine all the flowers turn to that flower. Cool. Pick another flower. Imagine all the flowers in this field turn to that flower. This is how creative and genius we are. We are given this thought field that the minute we have a thought that is not serving us, that is keeping us in a lower frequency, we have the mastery within us to be able to switch our focus to something that lifts us up, that is life-giving. We literally get to think and breathe and speak life into ourselves by simply focusing on it. This takes practice. Flowers are pretty simple. We don't have a lot of resistance with flowers. What you will have resistance with is the thoughts you've been thinking your whole life, right? Those are the ones that are going to creep up with resistance, but they're actually not any different than the flower. So if you can imagine that every time you have awareness of a thought that's creating lack and limitation, and you're resistant towards it, guess what's going to happen? Something new has the potential to grow. So, in this whole field of flowers of your thoughts, you not only have unlimited potential of new things to grow, but whenever new things grow, all of the old weeds are going to become really, really apparent, which means all the weeds are going to start growing pretty crazy right in your face, right in your awareness, right in your consciousness, so that you can finally pull them by the roots. So, step two is bring yourself into the present moment as much as possible and start becoming aware of what your thought field is filled with and start planting new thoughts by choosing to focus on new thoughts, new flowers, something different, something different. We talked about this before. Step three then is, let me talk about that thought field. When you really get there, you're in the unknown. You are literally in the quantum field. This is the unified field of wholeness. This is where all possibilities potential exist. This is where you lose your identity, except for when one of those weeds gets loud and tries to distract you and pull you back in, right? But every time you focus on something new, something unknown to you, you're going beyond your current past identity of yourself. And then what happens is you end up creating your future from the unknown, from these new thoughts, from this upgraded highest timeline that you've been pruning. And if you know Dr. Joe's work, this actually happens in your brain. It's called synaptic pruning. It literally happens in your brain. It's when you start to prune away all those old thoughts because you're focusing more on the new thought. You're focusing more on the higher frequency and the feeling to go with that new thought. You're doing that over and over again, that eventually that takes over. Eventually, the whole field, just like that one flower that you thought of, fills up the whole field. And weeds are like, meh, they're barely there. They're barely noticeable until they're not there anymore. How cool is that? Okay, why don't I just recap? I'm going to go back to what is your highest timeline, and you can create your own definition. This is just mine. I mean, it will probably change over time too. Your highest timeline is the highest frequency that you will allow yourself to receive right now. So, what are you worthy of? What are you worthy of receiving right now? That is the only thing that's getting in your way. You're the one that emanates it into the field, so you draw back to you the exact energetic experience to match that. How cool is that? It's always you. It's always you. It's always your future self, your highest timeline calling you forward. Always. And the key points to staying in your highest timeline or moving timelines is creating your state of being. Remember, your state of being is made up of how you think, feel, and act. And your highest timeline is always just one empowering thought or question away. What does my heart know right now? What does my heart need right now? If I thought that thought, how would I feel? What's your intention? Remember, your intention is an image that you get on the screen of your mind that gives you the feeling, the frequency of that experience. That is all you need to call the unknown into existence, to command energy to matter. Be open to not knowing what your highest timeline is, because you might know how it feels, but I can guarantee you that when it shows up, when it actually becomes an experience that is an energetic match to that, it's going to delight and surprise you. And that's what you actually want. You want to be delighted and surprised, and to feel satisfied with your efforts is to truly know that you're enough and that you're worthy of receiving. Thank you for listening. I love you so much. You are doing an incredible job with your life. I really, really, really do hope that you can become the person, because I know you can, who only looks back at your life to all those people you inspired just by being you, just by being here, just by your presence, which is so incredibly powerful. I hope you can understand that your thoughts are powerful, but you are the master. You get to choose where your focus goes, and where your focus goes, your energy flows. And that you embrace the unknown, because it's actually the unknown is what you want. Your soul craves it. Your soul craves the unknown adventure. And when you create from that space, you create your future from that space. And you're no longer creating your future from your past, which is full of lack. You're now creating from the abundance of limitless possibilities and potential. Winning the divine lottery is real. I feel it in my heart. And I know you do too, or you wouldn't be here listening. The divine lottery is your life, and you get to create it from the inside out. You get to claim your soul inheritance by saying yes to it, by saying yes to your heart, by building and restoring that connection to your heart, by building that coherency and pruning your thought field, pruning those synaptic questions, those synaptic, where did the word go? You know what I mean. Creating coherency, okay, between your heart and your brain. That's harmony. Order is heaven's first law. That is winning the divine lottery. When you understand that where you are right here in this moment is absolutely perfect, the way your life has unfolded couldn't have been better, and the best is yet to come. I love you.